morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Stormwater Permitting Requirements for Industrial Activity under the 2022 General Permit. My name is Helen Miller with the Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Our speaker today is Jason Fife with our Division of Surface Water. We also have several subject matter experts, Dan Bogoveski and Lynette Hablitzel, behind the scenes answering your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Jason Fife.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Fife. I'm the Stormwater Program Manager for Ohio EPA at our central office in Columbus. Basically, the intent of today's webinar is to go through and identify new requirements that are associated with our new industrial stormwater general permit that was just recently become effective this past June 1st. And then also go through and do a demonstration on how to renew your industrial stormwater general permit coverage. But first, to get started, let's take a quick poll question. Poll question 1 is, are you a consultant or represent a regulated industrial stormwater facility? Okay, it looks like the results are in. Looks like 50% of the folks attending today's webinar actually work for an industrial facility that's permitted by this general permit. 22% are consultants, and 29% picked other. So looking at Ohio's industrial stormwater universe, in Ohio, we have a little over 2,600 facilities that was covered under our previous industrial stormwater general permit. And then we also have almost 1,500 facilities that submitted what we call no exposure certifications. With the 2,600 facilities covered under industrial stormwater permit, that number does not represent. We have a lot of facilities in Ohio that have individual NPDES permits for a wastewater discharge. Some of those facilities also, due to their SIC code or narrative description of the facility and the rules, is also subject to NPDES industrial stormwater permitting. So we do have quite a few facilities in Ohio that, as part of their NPDES individual permit, they have both their wastewater requirements as well as the industrial stormwater requirements found in their individual permit. And those are always parts 4, 5, and 6 of their individual permit. So these numbers here is not representing those facilities that have their industrial stormwater requirements found within an individual permit. But these numbers here is we have about a little over 2,600 under the industrial stormwater general permit. These are the folks that need to be renewing their coverage right now. And then almost 1,500 facilities have submitted what we call no exposure certification. And basically what that is, it's a conditional exclusion from permitting. Basically, if you're a facility that is subject to the industrial stormwater permit due to your SIC code or narrative description in the rule, if you meet the definition of no exposure, you don't have to get a permit. However, you'd have to basically submit what we call a no exposure certification form, and then recertify that every 5 years, assuming that you continue to meet the definition of no exposure. And basically, the definition of no exposure is that all your industrial materials and activities are protected by a storm-resistant shelter to prevent exposure to rain, snow, snow melt, and or runoff. If you was a facility that has a no exposure certification on file, but there's a change at your facility where maybe you start storing materials outside, or certain activities are now being conducted outside that was indoors, and you would not meet the definition of no exposure anymore, then at that time you would need to submit an NOI and obtain industrial stormwater general permit coverage. The following is a US EPA guidance document. That's a good document to review. There's the web link for that document on the slide. And this is a good guidance document to look through to see maybe if your facility is eligible for submitting a no exposure certification, or maybe gives you some ideas as to some changes you could make in order to be able to certify no exposure. So our previous industrial stormwater general permit It was general permit number OHR 5006. It expired May 31st of this year. Our current general permit that we renewed, it's our 7th generation of our industrial stormwater general permit in Ohio. It became effective on June 1st. And like common, these permits have 5-year permit terms. So it'll run through and not expire until May 31st of 2027. So to kind of go through and identify some of the notable permit changes that was made from the previous general permit to the current. Not a big change, but in order to be consistent with Ohio EPA's current style manual, we've been all of our previous permits and guidance was all stormwater was 2 words. That's now been changed here at Ohio EPA for our style manual. So as we're renewing permits and updating guidance documents, we're changing stormwater from 2 words to 1 word. That's consistent with US EPA and pretty much, I think, most everybody else around the country. There was some minor typos and errors that was found in the previous permit that have been corrected now. In addition, some parameter reporting units. The previous permit, all reporting units were in milligrams per liter, but however, we noticed that there was certain parameters that we had in the permit, and the reporting units were milligrams per liter, but then when you went to submit the data in EDMR, the reporting units in EDMR was different. So example, arsenic, copper, zinc, aluminum, lead, selenium, silver, and cadmium. The reporting units in EDMR is micrograms per liter. So we've made that conversion in the permit just to be consistent with what you would report in EDMR. And then lastly, mercury, it was converted to nanograms per liter. So no change, just being consistent with the reporting units in EDMR. Another change that made to the current permit was regarding the benchmark monitoring schedule. The previous permit provided the first 12 quarters or 3 years of permit coverage to select and take the 4 quarterly benchmark samples. This current permit requires that these 4 quarterly benchmark samples be taken within the first 8 quarters or 2 years of permit coverage. So it just condensed the time in order to take your 4 quarterly benchmark samples to average and compare to the benchmark values in the permit to see whether or not you exceed the benchmark value or you don't exceed it. And consistent with the previous permit, exceedance of a benchmark value is not a permit violation. Again, those are just targets in the permit. What would be a permit violation if you don't go through the corrective action parts of the permit if you was to exceed a benchmark value. So another change that was made in the permit was, you take your 4 samples, you average those, you compare it to the benchmark. If your average exceeds the benchmark value, the current permit would require you to go through part 3 of the permit, look at what can we do, what corrective actions can we make to try to get that parameter value down, make those corrections, and then the current permit now requires you to take 4 more quarterly samples during the next 2 years to see if what corrective actions you did made a difference or not. The previous permit would still have you go through the corrective actions, but there was no additional monitoring to see if those corrective actions actually made a difference or not. So that is a change with this permit that if you do exceed a benchmark parameter, you go through the corrective actions just like the previous permit, but now you would be required to take 4 more samples during the following 2 years to see if those corrective actions made a difference or not. And one thing to highlight here is, if your facility, if you're in a sector of the permit that has, maybe just for example, you have to monitor for 3 parameters, but you take your four original samples and you only exceed 1 parameter, you would only be required to go through this for that 1 parameter that was exceeded, not the other 2 that you was below the benchmark. Another permit change was regarding our annual reporting form. We simply added the following yes/no question to the annual report. And that is, has your facility used coal tar seal coat to seal paved surfaces where industrial activities are located during the reporting year? And there is a note in there that there are substitutes for coal tar seal coats, such as asphalt emulsion sealants and acrylic sealants. And basically put this question in the annual reporting form, just an approach for us to try to get information on what type of usage of coal tar seal coats are in Ohio. US EPA and their federal multi-sector permit had some extensive requirements and monitoring associated with any facilities that did use coal tar seal coats at their facilities. This is our approach to try to determine what type of usage there is in Ohio. So this is a new question that's been added to the annual reporting form. Consistent with the previous permit, the annual reporting form is not required to be submitted to Ohio EPA unless we would specifically request it. So at this time, that's not required to be submitted each year. As far as the reporting dates, the permit gives facilities flexibility. Basically, the permit states to pick a 12-month time frame, whether it's January through December, July through June, but just stick to that annual time frame for completing your annual report. And again, it's not required to be submitted to Ohio EPA, but it's required to be maintained on site with your stormwater pollution prevention plan and required to be submitted to Ohio EPA if requested. Another change we made to the permit regards we added Appendix L to the permit. Our previous permit had no language in it that the permit was transferable, but it always was. So just to kind of spell it out that if you have a facility that's purchased by another entity, the permit can be transferred to the new owner. And that's consistent with the way we've been doing it over, for years, but the language just wasn't in the permit. So we had Appendix L to identify that the general permit is transferable, and there's instructions provided on how to do so in Appendix L. And basically that application form would be consistent with all of our other applications, just like the NOI application, be submitted electronically via our e-business center. So now let's stop and take another quick poll question. Poll question 2 is, what generation of the Ohio EPA NPDES Industrial Stormwater General Permit are we currently under now? Is it the first generation, third generation, the fifth, the seventh, or the 9th generation of this general permit? And it looks like the results come back. The correct answer was the 7th generation. Looks like 73% got that, so that's good. So now moving on. So we've just went through and highlighted. Again, there wasn't a lot of changes to the permit based on the previous, but what we went through is the changes that were made to the permit. The current permits, allows folks. It requires that any updates to your stormwater pollution prevention plan need to be made within 180 days of the effective date of the permit. So the permit become effective June 1st. So the permit would require that any updates to your facility's stormwater pollution prevention plan would need to be made within 180 days of that date. Right now we're going through and a lot of folks are submitting their renewal NOIs to renew coverage. Again, like I indicated, we had a little over 2,600 facilities that they're needing to renew their coverage. The permit gives folks 90 days from the effective date of the permit to renew your coverage. That's basically this September 1st that you need to submit a renewal NOI. There is a renewal NOI application fee of $350 to renew coverage. However, a recent change in our general permit rules that just become effective about a month or two ago With this is applicable for all of our MPDS general permits. So not just industrial, but all MPDS general permits. Basically, if your renewal application, if your previous initial coverage was issued on or after June 1st of 2021, there is no renewal fee to renew your coverage. So if we had any new facilities that that got coverage, on or after June 1st of 2021, they'd be able to renew their coverage now by September 1st, and there would not be an NOI renewal fee of $350. So regarding renewing coverage, I know a lot of facilities probably already have OHID accounts and electronic signatures, the PIN. There's also a lot of folks I know that don't. So here's a couple really good guidance documents. In order to renew your coverage, you first got to get an OHID account. So we got a guidance document at the website provided on the slide here that walks you through how to set up an OHID account and to add the e-business center to that account. And then for facilities, for actual permittees, you will need to get an electronic signature, which we call a PIN. And the following guidance document here walks you through on how to obtain your electronic signature, your PIN, and that's basically your electronic signature when you submit the application. A lot of questions we get is, can consultants submit the NOI? And the answer on that's no. Consultants can create the NOI renewal application and then delegate it to their client, and then their client would go in, review it, and submit it themselves. But yeah, consultants are not eligible to submit the NOI application because they're not the permittee. They're not the responsible party. So let's take our final quick poll question. And poll question 3 is, what experience do you have with using Ohio EPA's electronic application system called Streams to submit NOI applications? Are you very experienced, some experience, no experience, or what is Streams? It looks like we got a mixed bag. We got 40% with some experience, 39% with no experience, and about 10% very experienced, and 11% that have not heard of Streams. So it's a mixed bag. So hopefully we want to go through and do a demonstration, basically using Streams on how to renew your permit, and hopefully that might help some folks that have little to no experience. So Mike, if you would please take me to this website. Excellent. Thanks, Mike. So here is the Ohio EPA e-Business Center login page. Here's where you would click in to log into your OHID account. If you need instructions on how to set up your OHID account, right here is a link for step-by-step instructions that will walk you through how to set up an OHID account. So we'll go ahead and log into the OHID. So here I've logged into my OHID account. If it would be the first time that you was logging in, you would need to add the Ohio EPA e-Business Center app. And you basically do that by going to the App Store and typing in Ohio EPA Business Center. And that would add this app to your tab. So I'm going to go into the Ohio EPA e-Business Center. And for you all, you would likely only have one e-Business Center account. We'll use this account. Bear with me 1 second while I shrink this so I can see it. Mike, I'm needing to shrink this screen so I can see the options over here to the right.
Okay, give me a second, Jason.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Now, this is really the internal side. This is not what you guys would see, but when you log into the e-Business Center, it's going to take you here. And in order to submit any applications for the Division of Surface Water or notice of intent forms, notice of terminations, transfer applications, no exposure certifications, that's all done right here in the Division of Surface Water NPDES permit applications streams. So when you click in here, it'd be the first time you click in here, you'd have no facilities. But basically, as you have different facilities that you're over, you would eventually have all those listed in here in My Facilities. So to renew your permit, you first got to get your facility on your My Facilities page. So we're going to click Add Facility Permit, since it's an existing permit. I mean, if you want to create a new application, you would do it from here for initial coverage. But since we're going to renew coverage for an existing permit, click Add Facility Permit. You'll need to know your facility permit number. So you'll type in your facility permit number and click Search. And the system found it. You click Select. And it will add that facility permit number to My Facilities. I got quite a few on here, so I just got to find it. It's in alphabetical order. So when I click on it, the facility should only have one industrial stormwater permit, not three. That's why I'm using this one as it's a model one we can use. So here's the number I typed in, the 3GR 2331. So to get into that permit, you click the little triangle. It'll open it up. It'll say this permit is active. To renew this permit, I simply go in and click the blue Actions button. And then that'll bring up various options like renewal, terminate, transfer. create report, or download cover letter. So I'm wanting to renew it. So I select on renewal. It's going to say, do I want to create a renewal permit? Yes. So this will bring up my renewal NOI application, and this pulls all data and information that was currently in the system for the previous permit. So it does show its renewal coverage. Here's the 7th generation general permit. Now I can go in and actually, if I need to update any data or any information in this, I can go in and update it right now. So I'm going to go ahead and change contacts to me. So you review all the way down through here and make any updates that you need. Maybe I need to, we've got a new outfall now that I want to add to the permit. So I could click add NOI outfall. Then my sector is subject to benchmark 2842, node effluent. Call this one outfall 002. Put in your coordinates. I'm just going to select a location off the map, which you can zoom into your facility and actually, click on the location, click yes. You'll put those coordinates in. System does require you to put a collection method. And then a receiving stream, or MS4. Where does your discharge go to? I'm going to click the validate button just to make sure I entered everything. It says all fields are valid. I'll click save and then close. And that should have allowed me to add my second outfall here to my NOI application. There's no uploads or anything required for the NOI. So now one thing I was wanting to show that we've had some questions about, I'm going to hit save and close out. So maybe I want to come back and work on it later and finish it up. So if you go back into that NOI, I know a lot of folks was having a hard time, like, well, just saying, it's saying draft now. But since I've already created an application, it's now down here. So hit the application thing. You'll see this is the NOI I just created. It's an edit status. I'll go in. Now, if I was a consultant, I could go ahead and hit the delegate button to delegate it to my client. I'd need to know their e-business user ID, but I could delegate it to them, and that way they would be able to go in and submit it. But let's just say I'm the actual facility. I'm going to submit it myself. So to get back in it, you simply click the edit button. Click the validate to make sure all required fields have been entered. And now I'm going to click submit. And when you set up, this is basically when you set up your PIN, your electronic signature, you have to set up some security questions. So it'll always ask for one of the security questions you've set up, and then it will prompt your PIN, which is basically a bunch of numbers and letters. And click submit. So after you submit the application, it brings you to the Highway PA fee payment page. You have different options to pay the $350 renewal NOI fee. You can pay via credit card or an electronic check, or you can download the invoice and submit a paper check in the mail to pay your NOI application fee. As far as timing goes, if you pay electronically, the payment goes through within 24 to 48 hours. If you download the invoice and submit a check in the mail, it could take 10 to 14 days to process it. One thing to note, if you do pay by credit card, there is a 1.9% service fee that's added to it. If you pay by electronic check, there is no service fee. One last thing I was wanting to show you. So that's basically how you would, for an existing facility, how you'd go in, create your renewal NOI, and submit it, and then make the NOI application fee payment. One question we get a lot is folks like, I can't remember my PIN. So when you log into the eBusiness Center here, you have a couple different buttons up here, My Account, and one of the options is PIN Management. You click on that, click on View PIN, and basically it'll ask you to, this is all based on security questions you set up when you set up your PIN, but you'll enter the security question, click View PIN, and your PIN will pop up. So that's one way to, if you forget what your PIN is, a way to access that. With that, I'll take it back to our PowerPoint slide. One thing to bring up is here's all of Ohio EPA's various stormwater program staff throughout the state. We have 5 district offices and then a central office. So based upon the location of where you're at, what county you're in, here's the various stormwater inspectors and contacts that we have throughout the state. And then here at central office in our Columbus office. So, any questions you might have regarding permitting questions, requirements of the permit, how do I renew my permit? I'm having issues doing it. No matter what the questions are, pertaining to the permit, please feel free to reach out and give us a call or send any of us an email. And basically, all Highway PA staff's email is the first name dot last name at epa.ohio.gov. And so please feel free to reach out, and we'll help all we can to answer any questions. And with that, I'll take some questions.
Okay, great. We'll now go over some of the questions submitted during today's presentation. And as a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can. And if we haven't responded to your question during the presentation, we will reach out to you via email following today's webinar. So the first question is, as a consultant, can I submit an NOI permit application for my client?
The answer to that question is no. Basically, they don't meet the definition of a responsible official at the facility in order to they're not the owner, the operator of the facility. So consultants, like I went over in the presentation, they can create the renewal NOI for any of their clients and get that put together for them, and then delegate it to their client, the owner operator of the facility, to have them submit it. But the consultants are not eligible to submit NOI applications.
Okay, the next question is, when is a renewal NOI due for a facility needing to renew coverage under the new permit?
Okay, good question. The permit became effective June 1st of 2022, the current permit. The permit provides existing facilities 90 days to renew their coverage under the current permit. So that basically corresponds with September 1st. So facilities, all existing facilities will have until September 1st to renew their industrial stormwater general permit coverage under the 7th generation general permit. Basically what happens if facilities don't renew their coverage by September 1st, their coverage is basically administratively terminated, and they would be discharging without a permit. So it is very important for facilities to get those permits renewed. And as I indicated, please reach out to any of the Ohio EPA stormwater folks if you need any assistance doing that.
Hey, is the NPDES industrial stormwater general permit coverage transferable if a company sells a facility to another company?
Yes, it is transferable. And we kind of added, that's language we added in Appendix L to this permit. I mean, it's always been transferable, like other Ohio EPA NPDES permits, but the language was not in the permit really indicating that. So that's one of the things we clarified with this new permit, is that if a facility is purchased by a new owner, the current owner can transfer that permit to the new owner with our NPDES transfer application form, which is available in the e-business center. And basically, it was one of those drop downs from the blue menu button that we clicked to renew. One of those was transfer. If you'd click that, it'd bring up the transfer form. It would pre-populate all the existing facility permit information, and then the upcoming new owner would have to enter their information in there. And there's no fee associated with transferring permit coverage.
Okay, is my annual report required to be submitted to Ohio EPA?
Another good question. No, it's not. Previous permits are consistent with previous permits. This general permit does not require the annual report to be submitted annually to Ohio EPA. The permit does require that annual report, which is Appendix I of the permit. It's only I believe 5 or 6 questions. It's not an extensive report that you put together on an annual basis. The permit does not require it to be submitted to Ohio EPA unless Ohio EPA inspector would specifically request that you submit that report. But it is required to be completed annually and to be maintained with the facility's stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Is benchmark monitoring data required to be submitted to Ohio EPA via EDMR?
Another great question. Yes, the permit does require, when you look at the permit has 29 different sectors. in the permit. That's Part A of the permit. 19 of the 29 sectors are required to do the benchmark monitoring, and the permit does require that a facility submit that benchmark monitoring data to IEPA via EDMR. One last thing I'll add to that. I think there's been some confusion in previous permit terms. With the permits benchmark monitoring, again, there's a lot of flexibility with it. This permit gives you, 2 years to take 4 samples that represent each calendar quarter. So you could basically, wrap it up during the first 12 months of the permit, or stretch it out over 24 months. But a lot of facilities have asked, okay, I didn't take a sample this past month. Do I need to go into EDMR? Or for months I didn't take samples, do I need to go into EDMR and click no discharge or to actually enter something? And the answer is no. Basically, the way we got this permit set up, which is different from a lot of the NPDES permits we have here, which is expecting monthly data to come in. So if you don't submit, you basically get an email saying, you need to submit your data, but that is not within the EDMR system for this particular general permit. So you only need to actually go in and enter data for the months that you actually took a sample. So if there's a month that you did not take a sample, there's no need to go in and enter anything.
Okay, and here's another question, and I'd also like to ask our SMEs to select a few more questions because we do have time for those today. If you can let me know which ones are out there. So our next question is, under the general permit, what is the time frame to take my 4 quarterly benchmark monitoring samples?
Okay. As we'd kind of talked during the presentation, that was one of the changes we made to this current permit. The previous general permit provided facilities the first 3 years, the first 12 quarters of permit coverage, to take 4 samples representing each of the calendar quarters. The current permit has condensed that time frame to 2 years. So under the current permit, facilities have the first 8 quarters to take their 4 benchmark samples. And again, a sample needs to represent each of those calendar quarters.
Okay, another question is, for renewal fees, if the previous coverage was issued on or after June 1st, 2021, will the system know this and not generate an invoice, or do we ignore the invoice if we receive it?
If the system is it should not generate an invoice for you. If it does, please email me. It's something we will check. But if the system is saying you owe the $350 application fee, but your initial coverage was granted June 1st, 2021 to present, please shoot me an email and that way I can check into it. But it was supposed to be set up to where it would not generate an invoice for you.
Okay, and Dan and Lynette, you can continue selecting a couple more questions. And I know that a lot of people are entering questions. And like I mentioned earlier, we will get an answer for you. It may be a follow-up after the webinar. So we have this question. If we were in the middle of a permit cycle and had a contact change for a facility, how would we go about changing the contact information to ensure the correct person or people are associated with the permit? And is there a associated fee for this?
Good question. There is no fee for it. Currently, you would just simply need to email one of the Ohio EPA stormwater contacts, and we would actually go in and make the update to the system. So if you have a new contact person, or maybe you need to add a stormwater, new outfall or delete an outfall or any type of changes you need to make, there is no fee to make those changes. But currently, the way the system is, you would need to to reach out to an Ohio EPA contacts. Any of those stormwater contacts on the one slide would be good, and let us know, our contact person's changed from this to this person, or we need to add this outfall or delete this outfall. So any type of those changes, please reach out to us. We'll make the changes to the database to get that updated in the system. And that's one of the things, going forward that possibly you may be able to do. The facility might be able to go in and make those corrections or those updates, not corrections, updates. But currently, you would need to reach out to Ohio EPA to make that happen. But and again, there's no fees associated with doing that.
Okay, and Dan and Lynette, you can continue marking the questions to ask. Jason, I'm going to go ahead and select one here because I know they're really busy trying to answer them. So this is regarding a no exposure certification. If I submitted a no exposure certification previously, do I need to update such a certification if nothing's changed with the new stormwater regulations?
That's a great question. With no exposures and the general permit, I think sometimes folks get confused on that. Like, I have and again, with no exposure certifications, you have to recertify that every 5 years. And that 5 years is based upon the date on your no exposure certification. So that 5-year time frame for no exposure has nothing to do with us just recently renewing the general permit. A lot of times I think folks think that, well, Ohio EPA renewed the general permit, I need to recertify my no exposure. But as far as recertifying your no exposure, you have to do it every 5 years, and that 5-year time frame is based upon the date on your no exposure certification letter that you would have got from Ohio EPA when it was processed.
Okay, and Mike, actually, we've had a couple requests to have the contact information back up on the screen, or Jason, if you want to go back one slide.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm looking here for just a couple more final questions, and then we'll be doing our wrap up. Lynette or Dan, if you want to send me one, or I will go ahead and select one.
I see one here. Somebody had asked, what's EDMR? And basically, when I was talking about EDMR, that's Ohio EPA's electronic system to submit monitoring data. So on Ohio, if you go to Ohio EPA, just Google Ohio EPA EDMR, and that should get you to our EDMR page. And basically, it's just an electronic system. Years ago, data was submitted via paper, and then there would be staff at Ohio EPA that would enter that data into a program. But now basically all data is required to come in electronically. So EDMR is just Ohio EPA's electronic system to receive monitoring data.
Okay, another question, Jason, I see is, when do we submit the updated SWIP in the renewal process as an existing facility?
It's a great question. Actually, you're not required to submit it. The permit does stipulate that you have 180 days, so 6 months from the effective date of the permit, which was June 1st. So you have 180 days from the effective date of the permit to make any updates that you need to your existing stormwater pollution prevention plan. The permit would simply require that you make those updates within the 6 months, and obviously implement your stormwater pollution prevention plan at your site. But the permit only requires that you just keep and maintain that stormwater pollution prevention plan at your facility. The permit does not require that that your stormwater pollution prevention plan be submitted to Ohio EPA unless a Ohio EPA inspector would request it.
Okay, and this will be our last question. Is the September 1st the last day payment is due, or just the renewal document due then?
Yeah, if you get the, obviously, we got, we're flexible with that September 1st date. I mean, we're not going to, if there's applications been submitted but not paid, and September 2nd comes, we're not going to be, pushing a button to administratively terminate everybody's permit. So, I mean, so yeah, we're flexible with that date, but I mean, please try to get it in, because technically, technically, if you don't get your permit renewed by that date, that's technically a permit violation. So, I do encourage folks to go ahead and try to get their permit renewed as quickly as possible. Again, if you have any questions doing that, please reach out to any of us on this slide. But again, we wait a little while till after September 1st before we actually administratively terminate permits.
Hey, great. Thank you so much, Jason. And as I mentioned, we got lots of questions coming in, and I know that our SMEs didn't get to all of them, but you will get an email response back after the webinar. Again, thanks for your great presentation. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. We'd also like to bring your attention to our Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award program, which recognizes entities for exceptional achievements in environmental stewardship. Is your organization going beyond to reduce your environmental impact? Examples include retrofits on lighting, reducing water energy usage, recycling efforts, and process improvement. Is your community implementing sustainable measures to reduce their environmental impact? Examples include community gardening, and energy water reduction, green roofs, and smart transportation. And lots of us have kids in school. Is your K-12 student implementing student-led sustainable activities like recycling, water bottle refilling stations, anti-idling policies for buses, or composting? This program has different levels of recognition for organizations, communities, and schools. Please go to our website on the slide to learn more about the program. Before we end for the day, please check out our upcoming sessions. On July 19th, we have Air Pollution Risk Management Program for drinking water and wastewater treatment plant superintendents and operators. This webinar will focus on the basics of risk management program and how it applies to both water and wastewater treatment plants. The intent of the RMP is to put requirements in place to help minimize and/or prevent accidental releases or spills from happening. On August 9th, we have assistance and resources from Ohio EPA and OSHA's on-site consultation program. This session will cover the free and confidential services offered through Ohio EPA and OSHA to help businesses navigate complex environmental health and safety regulations. Please attend this session to learn more about the resources available and how they can help you. On August 16th, we have the environmental regulations of businesses in your community. Ohio EPA regulates sources of air pollution, waste handling, wastewater, and stormwater discharges, and more. This webinar will provide an overview of environmental regulations affecting both large and small businesses in your community and explain Ohio EPA's permitting, inspection, and enforcement procedures. Then to register for these upcoming webinars, check out our new agency event calendar at the link on the slide. The events calendar is also on our main webpage, and the link is also on our webpage footer at the bottom of every web page. To receive notifications of upcoming webinars, go to our Ohio EPA Customer Support Center. You can create an account and go to the option Subscribe to Updates and select All Trainings, Webinars, and Conferences at the link on the slide there. And the Customer Support Center link is also on the bottom footer of every web page. If you missed past webinars, you can also go to DEFA's webpage, the link on the slide. Once you're on our webpage, click on the word training on the left-hand menu column. Then you'll find recordings of training you may have missed. You can also go to our agency YouTube channel to view recorded webinars. We will post the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. It usually posts within a week of the webinar, and we also post a PDF copy of the PowerPoint slides with the recording. The YouTube channel link can be found at the bottom of each of our web pages on the footer as well. The YouTube icon's next to the Twitter icon on the bottom right-hand side. And with that, we will end today's webinar. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.